Hello there, welcome to this Ibrox for your Sunday night. It's a Sunday session. My name's Scott Patterson. If you're joining us on your Sunday evening, wherever you are, thanks for taking time out to join us to speak about the Rangers tonight. We're live across YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget, if you're not following us on any of our social media channels, and you can get us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. We're on Threads, if you remember Threads. We also do TikTok as well for the young team. And speaking of the young team, you'll be able to see from both of my contributors tonight that none of us, myself included, can be considered as part of the young team. Joining us from Texas is Craig Hart. Hi, Craig. How are you?
Very well, Scott. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. So soon.
And Saf from London, who you're not in the young team either, mate. You definitely are not.
No, far from it. I don't think I was ever in the young team. Ever in my life, but certainly not now. I hasten to say I don't even want to tell my age because it's going to scare people off.
Listen, it's good to see you both. I really appreciate you coming on the pod tonight. We're going to speak about a huge week for the football club, of course, BSV Eindhoven midweek, and then the small matter of the introductory Old Firm tie of the season next weekend. We can speak quite freely about Yanis Hadji leaving the club now. He's left on loan today. We'll do a bit about Glenn Kamara, who I think will be sort of quite close behind him out the door at some point during the week to Leeds. We will do a little bit about the finances that are going to be involved around the Champions League and Europa League. Saf, it's very much your sort of your time. We will look forward to hearing what you've got to say about that, and we will review the Ross County game from yesterday up at Dingwall. Before we go on to that, I should say that today I was at the Rangers women's team game at Broadwood. They finished 1-1 with Glasgow City today. As an appetiser for you, Claire Gemmell and Lauren Mackenzie and I will be restarting the monthly women's pod this week. We will get something probably recorded before the end of the week and out to you at some point over the weekend. Really looking forward to that and really pleased to welcome Claire back to the team and indeed introduce Lauren to you all over the next week or so. So lots to go, lots to discuss. And Craig, we will start off with you. Ross County yesterday. Team lines come out. And there's a guy who's starting up front called Kemar Roofe. The minute you seen him starting so randomly, what did you think?
Is he fit? It's the first thought. No, I was happy to see him, Scott, and I think he always affects the game. So I think it was a good game to bring him back. Every game's important for us right now. Obviously, still trailing, albeit not by that much anymore after this weekend, but I always thought Kemar was going to get on the score sheet if he's starting or coming on with a decent amount of game time to play. So I was happy to see him. I think, take away his injury problems, he's potential to be the best striker at the club. I think he was that before we brought in the new guys. Time will tell if the new guys can take up that mantle or not, but I was happy to see him there. And I think that answers your question.
Saf, the thing that gets me about Kemar Roofe is that, and I agree with Craig, I think he can be I think he's arguably the deadliest striker at the club from a technique and an ability perspective. And we say that maybe without properly seeing Cyril Dessers and Danilo just yet. However, isn't it sad that this guy's legacy now is the first thing you think, and Craig's absolutely right, and I get this and associate with it. You're just hoping he gets through the 90 minutes or however long it is he plays. And do you know what I mean? I joked in our agenda that, do you know what I mean? One of the things we should be surprised at is that he never came down the road in a bus with a moon boot on. And do you know what I mean? You mean it facetiously, but Saf, you're very aware that it's determined his career a little bit at Ibrox, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Scott. It's quite funny because it's like a new signing, isn't it? Joining us this season again at the start of the season. And you're right, every time he goes down, whether it's an innocuous injury or a foul or whatever, you're worried like he's going to get stretchered off, he's going to come off. Because you've got that kind of post-traumatic stress disorder, haven't you, with him? That's not going to go away anytime soon unless he has a run of 20 games or something. So that's why, to answer your question as well, Scott, I was very surprised. I was shocked. Why is he starting, especially, I guess, away from home? Tough surface perhaps as well, tough ground and so on. But credit to the manager, obviously he knows best who's up for it or who's fit and so on. He did that and it proved to be right. But certainly it was a concern. Fingers crossed. He said himself he came out of it unscathed and is looking forward to the next one. This is the start of something. Fingers crossed.
So I will come back to you both a little later on. John Weir has jumped in on the YouTube channel tonight, and he said that he should probably start next week against Celtic. I think that may happen. However, as the night goes on and we get closer to discussing what's exactly happening next weekend, I'll give you the opportunity to say whether you will indeed start Kemar Roofe next week in a 3 or a 2 up front or whatever. The floor will be yours. I think the other headline probably from the sort of weekend game yesterday, Saf, was John Lundstram coming in and Ryan Jack being rested. Obviously, I would imagine with the trip to Holland in mind, and I have to say I felt John Lundstram put himself about really well yesterday. I think Ian Mitchell jumped into the WhatsApp group and suggested it was like seeing the Europa League Lundstram yesterday. I thought he fared quite well in Dingwall yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday was quite a tidy match, wasn't it? Apart from the first 10 minutes, when there's a few steward passes and misplaced passes and whatever, getting the rhythm of it. Lundstram, amongst the rest of them, played well, kept composure, was okay in that context. Nothing spectacular, but nothing disastrous either that we've seen in terms of some of his poor performance of late. So, yeah, again, another positive from yesterday.
Cubby has jumped in. Roofe's ability to adjust his body and positions to score while holding off a player. And I think it's a great shout. We obviously took the lead 21 minutes in. Craig has left. I assume he will come back. There was a couple of headers between the start of the match and us taking the lead. Dessers has 2 really good headers sort of back to back, all within the space of a couple of minutes. And he should really get, I would argue he should probably score with one of them, to be perfectly honest with you, which brings you onto the Dessers finishing debate, which I don't think is one for now, but the Cubby's point about the goal that Kemar Roofe does score, I think, is absolutely right. I don't think there's anyone that we have in the squad just now. Hi, Craig, welcome back. I don't think there's anyone that we have in the squad just now that is capable of scoring that goal in such a. I mean, he's behind the centre half when he makes contact with the ball to score. It's a remarkable goal for a guy who's got such little game time, Craig, to score. It was a really impressive sort of first half for Kemar Roofe yesterday.
Yeah, when the goal went in, seeing it live from kind of the main camera angle, it was like everyone was kind of shocked that the ball was in the back of the net. That was the first reaction, and it really took a replay for me to really see what happened. I don't know what part of Kemar's body it connected with to go in. So just remarkable technique, just that predatory instinct that all top strikers have, and getting on the end of it 1-0. I thought we started quite poorly. I don't know if you even got onto the game. We gave the ball away maybe 3, 4, 5 times in the middle of the park in the first half, which is in the first 10 minutes, which is kind of pet peeve of mine. Against better teams, they'll punish you in those positions, right? Yeah. So especially with a better team in mind midweek. So, but we came onto a game, but Kemar's goal definitely kind of got us going, and then I think momentum took us to the second, and I think Dessers missed a couple of good heading chances as well. He's got to do better. Maybe 3 of them by the end of the game. He's got 3 chances with his head. So, but he's still building confidence and learning the system, and so he'll come good. I'm sure he will.
Ryan Nugent, who's watching on YouTube tonight. Hi, Ryan. Thanks. Good evening. Welcome. Similarities to Roofe's goal to the one that Morelos had disallowed last season. Celtic at Celtic Park. He's absolutely spot on, and I completely forgot all about that. But he's absolutely right. That was the goal that Morelos. I think it was the boy Johnston. He just muscled them off the ball. Yeah. Sheer power on Morelos' part. So I think maybe the only difference was that Kemar Roofe, I think, is effectively airborne for the goal he scores yesterday. It's a really impressive strike, and I say. Or as I say, rather, you're talking about a guy who's missed so much football, and he's playing with new players. I mean, when you think about when Roofe's last start was in April 22, which is incredible. Do you know what I mean? Well over a year ago, and for him to come in and really play the way he did yesterday, I thought was really impressive. And I think from a perspective of the focus at the moment is on the strikers and the three positions that we're playing up front. And do you know what I mean? How effective they're going to be, how potent they're going to be in front of goal, how offensive they're going to be. For as long as one of them plays and continues to score, I genuinely think we'll be okay. Dessers is getting in the right positions. He will come good. He'll be absolutely fine. Kemar Roofe, I think, is a different story, because what you're looking for ultimately in the first instance is for him to have a run of games. It's really important. A run of games will hopefully bring goals, and we hope that he can add to something this coming weekend. JB, he's one for rubbing it in, isn't he? He's watching from sunny Cyprus. Great show, boys. Thank you, JB. I hope you go well and you have a really good holiday wherever it is you are in Cyprus. I'm sure you'll have a fantastic.
It's not as sunny as it is here, JB. I've got you beat.
Listen, as so often as we say on this podcast, every so often we just leave it up to James Tavernier to do what James Tavernier does. And I've been critical of him on this podcast in the past. I think many of us have. Craig, I know you have. Saf, I believe you have on occasion as well. The goal he scores at the weekend is absolutely faultless from start to finish. Collects the ball in his own half, intercepting a stray Ross County pass, and he glides and he glides. If memory serves me right, he's jostled by one of these centre halves, and he manages to get out his feet, and his effort to curve it right into the high corner of the goal was really something else. Craig, I'll come to you first, because I know that you and I, as I say, we've both been critical of James Tavernier previously. It's something, isn't it?
Oh, listen, if Jude Bellingham did that against the Ross County of La Liga, or whoever Yanis is signed for, that video is going viral, right? But it's, as against Ross County, so it won't.
Yeah.
I mean, we know Tavernier is capable of that going forward. He's magnificent. He's some athlete. He's got some wand of a right foot on him. I don't think any of us were surprised to see Tav doing that. But like I said, we have been critical of him. But I think what I'll say to that point, Scott, is that both can be true. Especially the captain. I got pelters for slating the captain when he put in a bad performance. He should be the first person to be slated if we put in a bad performance, in my opinion. I've slated Barry Ferguson, Lorenzo Amoruso, Richard Gough, albeit very few times. And so I think both are true. It's just honesty, it's accountability. I think he does have massive defensive shortcomings. We'll have to look at the last game against PSV where he gets sucked in for the equalising goal. Ryan Jack can't get across the cover. That's the problem. It's reoccurring. And, over the last 2 seasons, we've leaked so many goals because of it. On the flip side, we don't get to a Europa League final without a right back that's playing out his skin and contributing to goals in their attacking performance. So it's that Jekyll and Hyde conversation, but both can be true. And I hope I don't come to criticism of him anytime soon this season, but, the likelihood is that we might. So... But what a strike. I mean, going back to the game yesterday, I mean, just the replay, I think it was the last replay. It always seems to be the last angle is the best one. And it just, no keeper in the world saving that. It was just perfect. Like Seema's one the other night, just postage stamp, as you say. So, yeah, tremendous. Good stuff.
Saf, and one of the things that I think Tavernier is getting at the neck, and Robert Carmichael, hi Robert, one of the questions you asked is, do we think that the criticism of him is justified? I think that one of the things I think we're now beginning to see, and I think we've seen it in the last couple of weeks actually, is that they are slowly but surely coming around to the way that Michael Beale is looking for them to play. Previously, they went from not being so advanced under the sort of previous manager, Giovanni. Michael Beale comes in and he's looking for them to play in the same way they played previously under Giovanni. I think it's taken them a little bit of time to just get into that mindset of playing so advanced and being almost the main outball on either side. Borna Barisic, I think, is a prime example of how he's changed his game. He's in a great run of form. I said on BBC Scotland yesterday on Sports Sound that I felt that he's someone that's really benefited from Michael Beale coming in and, do you know what I mean, just letting Borna play. Everyone really expected Ridvan to be the first choice left back this season. There's no danger that Ridvan should play left back at the moment ahead of Borna Barisic, because he's playing out his skin. He's playing absolutely fantastic. And one of the main reasons is he's been given that freedom to get up and down. And his final ball is probably as good as anyone else's in the country, and we're seeing it now. We need to see that, not that same from Tav, because I think Tav's offering us loads more in various different areas. The goal yesterday is a prime example of that. It was really some effort, wasn't it? I actually thought Tav played quite well yesterday too.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, Scott, you know, it was a great goal, wasn't it? I mean, Tav's done that so many times, whether it's a free kick, coming out and scoring at pace. Yesterday's was another example. But again, similar to what Craig is saying, you can kind of criticise him on the defensive side, because that's valid as well. He's 31. He's not going to get any faster. We know there's going to be a drop-off of pace. Where that happens, the big call for Michael will be, or any Rangers manager, is when do you look at that side of the defence and change it, and not keep him on too much, as perhaps Michael or others have been guilty of keeping other players in position when they should have been left maybe a year ago. You know, we've got some. I'm sure we've talked about examples in the past. So that's the big call to make, whether that's this year or next season. But Tav does give you that. Yesterday, no other player would have scored that type of goal coming forward, that interception, you know, taking it all the way up to the length of the park. You can argue the Ross County defence kind of sat back, but you understand why they sat back as well, because there was a net ball there as well that potentially could have happened. So and he placed it in the net. It was a beautiful goal. You know, Tav did that. What can you do? Hats off to him. You got to just applaud that kind of skill.
So 2-0 at half-time. Just before half-time, I have to say a special nod to Sam Lammers, who I think has been given a bit of a tough sort of trek on it since he's arrived in Glasgow, and sometimes he hasn't played well. I think you're seeing him, if he's coming in from the right-hand side, I think he looks really quite dangerous. Had a really good effort right in the stroke of half-time, and Ross Laidlaw, the Ross County goalkeeper, made a really, really good save. It was creeping right in the top corner, and he done well to sort of cling it away. Listen, I've said before that big moments in big games can really affect what we do. Ross County came out in the second half, and Jordan White, who so often scores against Rangers, everyone knows he's a huge Rangers fan, and regularly he scores against us, has a wonderful chance right at the start of the second half, and probably should hit the target, to be perfectly honest with you. Shortly after, Jack Butland has to make a really good save. Craig, Butland, I'm absolutely of the opinion that he's been the most important signing we've made of the summer. We all know that the other guys that have came in for decent wads of cash, your Danilo's has came in for decent money, Dessers has came in for decent money. Butland comes in for nothing to replace big gloves, like it or not, and however you think Alan McGregor's last season at the club was or was not, Butland comes in to replace those big gloves. He's really doing it for me so far.
Yeah, you asked me 2 weeks ago who you've been impressed most by. We're still kind of just getting over a pre-season, and the answer was Butland. And I just think he's just hit the ground running. No pun intended, albeit he's a goalkeeper, but you just feel so much more comfortable, don't you? Especially at set plays. I mean, you know, he comes for the ball. I think he came for the ball once yesterday, right at the end of the game, and missed it. Right, so there was not 100% perfection, but I think that's the first time I've seen him do it with the jersey.
Yeah.
Every other time, it's just been shut it down, hasn't he? He just came and got the ball, and that's it, dealt with. And I think it inspires confidence with the guys playing in front of him, because, you know, I had John Suter as my man of the match yesterday. I thought Connor was tremendous, you know, with the ginger hammer thrower up front for Ross County, putting himself about, right? So Butland's been awesome. We couldn't have asked for a more terrific replacement for McGregor, and it just continues that great Rangers tradition of having fantastic goalkeepers, and so he's been brilliant. Yeah,
you know, you're absolutely right. There was a couple of moments even in the midweek past there against Eindhoven, and he was coming to just claim balls. I think it was one that he came right out. He was almost an 18-yarder. And he's claiming the ball, but he's claiming it with confidence. He's not coming out and looking shaky, or he's coming out to punch. He's coming out, and you can almost imagine him saying, like, I'm coming to get this ball, and I'm going to wipe all yous out if I have to, but I know it's my ball, and I'm going to come and take it. And you're absolutely right. It must breed a confidence into the 4 that are playing ahead of them, or a 3, however that's going to work out moving forward. Saf, we sort of huffed and puffed a little bit in the second half yesterday, and one thing that I think Michael Beale may be a bit disappointed about is just the general ruthlessness of guys like Sima. Matondo forces a really good save out the goalkeeper. Sima then has another chance shortly after. It could quite easily have been 4 or 5-0 yesterday, and those little moments where we're maybe not being as ruthless in front of goal that we could be. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to think it could be the difference between now and the end of the season, but big picture, goals will effectively win you championship. So you will be wanting to see a better build-up of goals, I suggest, from the strikers.
Absolutely. I mean, that goes without saying. I think, as we said, there's a couple of Dessers misses in the first half, then the second half as well. We kind of tailed off a bit, wasn't it? The kind of game was essentially won. A couple of things I would say. Firstly, it was good to have that clean sheet. I think that's important as well. And again, what you guys have just said, but then if it's inspiring confidence in me, watching it, having that goalkeeper coming out for crosses, being decent on his feet, no doubt, clearly the defence is being inspired or having that confidence as well going forward. And long may that continue. We need to score more goals. I'm sure that will come over time as well as the team kind of gels and gets to grips. Another thing that I noticed yesterday, certainly for me anyway, was, say if White has scored, and that was a kind of game that would have been a 2-1 maybe last season. I would have been nervous saying, oh gosh, we're going to lose this one or draw this one. It didn't happen, clearly. We saw it out at 2-0, a good win. We still got a decent goal difference still early in the season, and long may that continue. But you're right. I think we will get more ruthless. The team seems to be on an interesting trajectory, and I think that's important to see that. And I think see the positives in that, absolutely.
Craig, one of the things that we saw last week, which I think was really, really exciting, and Michael Beale indeed referred to Tom Lawrence as potentially being a starter. I think, taking into account his experience at the club so far, probably his age as well, to be perfectly honest with you. It was really good to see him come off the bench and get some game time. He obviously scored for the B team against Hamilton during the week. Really good goal, very clever goal. But it's just building up. Do you know what I mean? Tom Lawrence included, we're just building up to a point where, with 2 huge games coming this week, which everyone knows about, we have a fully fit squad to pick from. And Michael Beale must be thinking, well, I've got my work cut out in trying to pick my 11 best players for these next 2 games.
Oh, I tell you, Scott, nobody was happier than me to see Tom Lawrence come off the bench yesterday. I think he is a wonderful football player. I was gutted when he got injured last season. I just thought he brought something to our midfield that we hadn't seen in a long time. The sooner we can get him back in the team and up to speed, the better. Tom Lawrence has just got he's got a footballing brain, and he's still quick. He can still get to things. I was kind of waiting to see him yesterday, and I was kind of half expecting when we seen Yanis Hadji come back in the team, maybe a yard off the pace of the game, a little bit of struggle. He looked fine to me. So I don't know if he's ready to be thrown back in. We bring him in on appearances off the bench and then get him in the team. To me, he's got to be in that midfield at some point, and I'd like to see Raskin as a 6 and have Lawrence on the left and Cifuentes on the right. To me, that's our ideal midfield. So hopefully we see him sooner in the starting 11 rather than later, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, it's just really good to have him back. I completely agree with you. I think he's a very, very special midfielder. Technically as good as I think anyone else at the club, to be perfectly honest with you. And we've seen it. We've seen him prior to him being injured. We saw just how good he could be. I think about the the header that he scored at Easter Road, a bullet header, and when you know what I mean, you bring someone like him into the club, I don't think you ever think for a second you're bringing him in for his heading prowess, but it was just something that he had to his game that I don't think anyone expected. And I actually agree with you. I think him in a midfield alongside Raskin and Cifuentes would be really quite exciting, because we know what Raskin can do from that harrier battling perspective. He will always look to get the ball. I think it would give Cifuentes and Lawrence just freedom to almost do as they please. So I do hope we get the opportunity to see that. Saf, one of the things that Michael Beale did speak about yesterday in his press conference, he referred to John Lundstram. He was really pleased with his performance, and he openly referred to how John Lundstram done a lot of nasty, dirty work yesterday up at Dingwall. And I think a lot of people have felt that John Lundstram in this transfer window may have been one of the first to disappear. As I said at the start of the show, I felt it was really good yesterday, and the fact that Michael Beale is picking up on it. And I know a lot of people think that Lundstram is Beale's boy. I don't think that's the case. I think John Lundstram is a far better player than what many of the support are prepared to give him credit for.
Yeah, I mean, John Lundstram, obviously, he's not had the greatest of form, whether that was last season or the start of this season. Would he be in the starting 11 for most Rangers fans going forward? I'm not sure. I know from the past, from reading about him in the past, when he was down south, he did have kind of stop-start seasons where he came into form for 20, 30 games and then came out again, where that's a phase that he just gone through, and fingers crossed he'll do well. John Lundstram working all gears, all engines, or whatever metaphor you want to choose, it's a positive for Rangers. We'll win matches, we'll close off games, we'll let in less goals. So I get why Michael would have said that, just trying to give him a bit more confidence perhaps in what is a very important 7-8 days coming up as well for him and the team as well.
Scott, if I can just jump in there, John Lundstram had a good chance yesterday. It fell to him at the edge of the box, and that's where Lawrence comes in. We need someone that can, have an effort from long range, score goals from outside the box, gives defenders something to think about, opens up spaces in case he's going to do it. Yeah. John, if that was Lawrence or Ian Ferguson on the end of that yesterday, it's a goal. It's a goal for me. It's teed up perfect, and he strokes it away. But he didn't. He claps it wide, and that speaks volumes for me.
Yeah. No, listen. I think that's fair. In the first instance, I think what you're looking at is a guy who he's been much maligned, and I know that's we use that a lot as far as John Lundstram's concerned. But I have to say, I do think the last few games where he's been asked to come in and do a job, you couldn't argue that he's done that. He played well yesterday. When he came off the bench midweek, he was really good as well, and was one of the things that I really liked seeing on Wednesday. Was one of the things he was clearly sent on to do was to keep the ball in the final third of the pitch. You could see him telling his teammates, keep the ball up there. Do you know what I mean? Put the pressure on them defensively. And while I'm not convinced that you'll see him in Eindhoven midweek, I think you've seen enough to maybe see that he could be potentially involved as a bit part player perhaps there, and indeed again next weekend. So it'll be very interesting to see how Michael Beale continues to use John Lundstram, particularly with Jack being back and obviously being used sporadically, because that's what we get with Ryan Jack. Raskin, who has developed this ability to play a little bit more advanced. We hear him, he's a 6, he's an 8. I tend not to deal with numbers. I just want to know what position he can play. And I think in Nico Raskin, we've got a complete midfielder. I think he can do whatever he likes to do in the game, to be perfectly honest with you. But with Lawrence being back and Cifuentes also being around, it'll be really interesting to see how, particularly those 5, are used moving forward. That's without bringing into Todd Cantwell into consideration, who of course we can know they can play that a little bit deeper. Saf, we know it's a huge week for the football club. Champions League versus Europa League. Do me a little bit on finances, will you, and try and make it simple.
Yeah, keep it straightforward. You're right, Scott. I mean, It's funny to see that. What we're in 27th of August, second or third week of the season, and the next week could define our season essentially in some respects. The next two matches, which is a bit weird thinking that, considering we were at the start of not even September yet. In terms of finances, again, rough numbers. As we know, we had the Champions League last year, and therefore Rangers posted record revenues on the back of that. Sorry, on the back of the Europa League run. So let's go back to that first of all. So we had the Champions League. When the results are out in a few months, they'll probably be record again, maybe closer to 90, 100 million pounds of revenue. So a big number from a Rangers context, record in what they have. So some Champions League is important. From a rough estimate, Champions League v Europa League, I think it's about a 15 million gap of getting into the Champions League, and assuming you win some decent matches or get some points. Obviously, there's you get extra money for the points and so on, and also additional revenue because you're in the Champions League, TV rights and so on, and sponsorship rights and whatever. So there's a difference. So Wednesday's match is important, and clearly it's important for the coefficient as well, bearing in mind next season Champions League is essentially a Super League in all but name as well. So again, big money. Next season Champions League just goes crazy in terms of money. It's roughly about a £50 million Champions League entry point next season. So half our money could come from half our Rangers revenue next season could come from Champions League qualifying in itself. Never mind what else Rangers does in that league itself. So it's very important. Wednesday is a very, very important match, just like it was essentially this time last season going into it as well. So we shouldn't have any doubt. Europa League, as we know, can be lucrative. We saw that when we got to the final run, but that's all about getting a run beyond Christmas into quarter one next year, into kind of Feb, March next year, and so on. And that's not guaranteed. But still, it's decent money as well. You shouldn't be concerned about that. But yeah, Champions League where it's happening, I would like to think that we should be in that group anyway. Notwithstanding the fact last year was a disaster when we got there. I think Goalscoring made that point as well. He wants to kind of prove himself again, or prove the point that last year was an aberration as opposed to what our standard is in that kind of elite group. So yeah, it's a very, very important match. For me, the most important of the two, but we can argue that point later on. But it's a very important match.
And Saf, so I'll stick with you because I'm really interested to know what you think about. We obviously know that the balance sheet and the finance people in and around the football club will probably be looking to get Champions League football, which we know, and it makes a lot of sense why. From a football perspective, do you have a preference? Would you like to see us go into the Champions League again for another crack at things, considering last season went so poorly? Or would you be quite content with us to drop into the Europa League and maybe compete at a level on Thursday nights again?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's debated a lot on social media, Champions League, Europa League, what's our level? We get more points in the Europa League, more credibility. We won't lose as badly. For me, it's always about you want to get into the competition that you can get into, best of all, elite competition. Whether you then get to, third place and drop down, pre-Christmas into Europa League and so on, you can argue that. I would like to get into the Champions League, face the likes of Arsenal, City, or whoever's out there, and continue to try and improve the players that we have, the club, the mentality to try and win these kind of matches, or certainly be respectful in these kind of groups. And that's the only way to do it, really, is my view.
Craig, there's a lot of nodding going on down there, my friend. What do you say?
I've got to stay silent, so I'm like, yeah, everything that Saf's saying. I think not qualifying for the Champions League on Wednesday is a disaster. Listen, shout at me all you want. It's a mindset thing, right? Nobody watches the Europa League over here, right? You want to talk about a North American perspective? Nobody notices the Europa League. Nobody, right? We need to get in the Champions League. Our rivals are in it, right? And we gave them a free ticket into the thing, which we should be feeling about, right? So we need to be in it. It raises our brand profile, so people are aware, new generation because we've been away for a long time, knows who we are, knows how big a club we are. It's a mindset thing. I take it back to when Gerrard came in the club. Did we have any expectations in Europa League whatsoever? No. And now we have these full expectations of, yeah, we should go on a run Europa League. Well, can't we show some progress and have the same belief that we can go and at least put a good showing in the Champions League and build on it?
Yeah.
I think that's where we have to be. Saf spoke about the revenue. That is gold to us. We need to build on that. It attracts players because it raises our brand. Players want to come play for us because we're in the Champions League consistently. It's a no-brainer for me. I will be gutted if we go out. I know I've heard the talk through other mediums and whatnot about, it's not a disaster if we drop into Europa League. Yeah, in theory, it's not a disaster. For us, in terms of progression and our rivals being in the top league, we need to be in the Champions League.
Yeah, and I think I'm in a similar place. Do you know that way? And there's a lot of scar tissue, and I'm going to say scar tissue. Tommy McIntyre, the managing editor of this Ibrox, I'll be delighted I've used that term, but there's a lot of scar tissue, I think, from last year. And I know, do you know what I mean? We had games last year when we were playing with Davis and Arfield and Sands, and Leon King was thrown in there, and we had John McLaughlin playing in goals. And I think we've now got a different setup. We now have a different team. I said yesterday that I feel more confident taking Michael Beale's Rangers to Holland than Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's Rangers to Holland, and yet it was Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's Rangers that got us in the Champions League. So I don't want to say I'm easy-ozy about it, but I almost am. I would love to see us in the Champions League again. I would love us to come out of pot 3 at the end of this week with a really tidy draw and sort of a couple of games to look forward to. Importantly, I would like the draw to be kind to us, that if we do get in there, that we have a chance to go for second or third, however you want to call it. But I really would. I'm greedy. I am greedy. I would like us to get in the Champions League, but I don't think it's a huge disaster, Craig, if we were to drop in the Europa League. But I take your point 100% about the aspirations when Gerrard was around, who would never have thought about the Europa League being something that we would go for or be keen to progress in or anything like that. Just out of curiosity, and do you know what I mean? I have said I'd do forecasts for the week later on. I'll do it right now. Your mindset for PSV Eindhoven as it stands right now, what are you thinking? Do you think we can do it midweek?
You asking me, Scott?
Craig.
I know I was going to. Oh, me, sorry. Yes, I think we can. I think we've had a stutter start to the season, there's no doubt about it. But I think we've taken a lot of confidence in our first showing against PSV. I think we can build on it. I think we had a few players maybe not firing on all cylinders. Cifuentes comes to mind. If we can get him going, he could be a problem. So, we have to believe that we can go in and do it. I think, going back to saying that it's a mindset thing, I think it is in this fixture as well. We seem to be a real bogey team for PSV. And, I watched Peter Bosch's press conference after the first leg there, and he was getting slated by the Dutch media. I mean, really hounded. He's got a good poker face, Peter Bosch. No doubt he's a good manager. I actually had a shout for him when we were looking for a manager, but he was getting hounded. So make no mistake, the pressure will be on PSV to rid themselves of this Rangers curse that is upon them. When we need to capitalise on that, so we need to be at it from the off. And if we are, I think we can get in their heads, and we have a lot of attacking threat. So we just need, as you said earlier, Scott, one of them to hit the back of the net, and it's game on. So yes, I think we can do it.
Saf, same question to you. Do you fancy us in midweek?
Yeah, I mean, like Michael said at the end of the first leg, it's basically a shootout away, isn't it? It's not, from my understanding, it's not that intimidating a stadium overall. So, winners takes all. You win the match, you get into Champions League. Whether you do that in extra time, or penalties or whatever, who cares? Okay, we won it last year. If I remember from last year, they had a lot of chances away from home that they missed. They should have won by two or three.
Yeah.
And we got lucky, you can argue, in the end. But still, I think this is as you said yourself, Scott, earlier on. This is probably a better team than last year, probably better coach than what we've got from last year. Going into it, so you fancy your chances. It's a 50-50 game. You fancy your chances of getting it through. With that, and also it's helpful for me knowing that these players did it last year in a kind of similar setup, draw, then winning away. And then they know how to do it. So with that kind of mentality as well, fingers crossed, whether it goes to extra time, whether it goes to penalties, God forbid, I think we can do it and have that consistency. And as Craig said, have that mentality. And I think he made an important point that I missed. The other side have got Champions League. So if we want to continue to match that, and money talks, players, quality of players, league points or whatever. We need to get into that phase, and it will set us back, albeit not majorly, but still a setback if we don't get that. So fingers crossed we get there. And I'm hopeful. I think we've got a good mentality going into it. From yesterday, from last week, we played well. Michael's got us set up well. Fresh players coming in that we know about, that we just talked about. So I'm confident without being like, I'm wary about it as well. But yeah, fairly confident.
Do you know, I did say yesterday, one of the things we spoke about in the podcast, we spoke about it pre-season when players were coming into the club, and you had much of the newbies that were coming in were referring to the presentation that Michael Beale done and the way that Michael Beale spoke to the new guys, how he was promoting the Rangers vision for, do you know what I mean, you, Danilo, to come to Glasgow, you, Cyril Dessers, to come to Glasgow, you, Kieran Dowell, come up the road to Glasgow. How he promoted that vision for these guys to come up. And one of the things that he used regularly to them was the opportunity to play Champions League football. Kieran Dowell would never have got anywhere near Champions League football in his career unless he came up the road to Rangers. I think that's really quite a fair assumption to make. So all of these guys that have that presentation in their mind and were sort of, don't want to say fed it because it sounds like we're kind of spinning a yarn a little bit, but we're given that to encourage them to come up the road. This is their opportunity. Wednesday night is absolutely their opportunity. Do you know what I mean? Michael Beale has done his bit, if you like, by getting them up here. He's went and seeked out these guys and felt that they could come up here and do a job. It's a Champions League match. It's a shootout, as you rightly say, Saf. It absolutely is that. Winner takes all, literally. And I really hope that whoever starts on Wednesday night really sort of takes the bull by the horns. John Weir sort of jumps in. And this is something I thought we might have seen midweek, to be honest with you. Matondo starting. I felt he would have started for his pace and his ability to get in behind the defence. I thought he would have started at Ibrox. He never. I think from what we've seen from him, there has to be a good chance, Craig Hart, that he has a chance of starting there on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I seen John's comment before you even brought it up, and I was thinking to myself, first leg, I was crying out. Let's take ourselves back to before kickoff on the first leg. We were really looking for a performance. I don't think anyone was really confident going into that game.
Sure.
And that changed completely after the game, right? I wanted Matondo in there because we talked about in weeks previous how narrow we were and without pace. And I thought, okay, Matondo's now fit. We've not replaced Ryan Kent, and he's as close as we've got to him in terms of that type of player. But that's why I'm not the manager. Michael Beale put him on as a substitute after their defence tired. And I think that allowed them the space to get in and get the goal. I'm still caught in two minds. He didn't play him as a starter against Ross County. I don't believe he'll play him as a starter on Wednesday either. I think he'll bring him on as an impact player as well. Because I think we've seen those two centre-backs, and again, going back to the Peter Bosch press conference after the game, he says it's no secret that they're in for a centre-half. So that might be a weakness that can be exploited there. But I think he will wait until they tire. And I think, but who knows, stranger things happen. But I think he'll have a part to play regardless. Matondo is he's oozing confidence. You see me come on yesterday. So he'll have a part to play for sure. But I think if you ask me for a prediction, I think he's going to start on the bench.
You know, it's very interesting. Andrew Barkley, who joins from YouTube, start Matondo as they will play a high line, balls over the top for Rabi to run onto, which I agree with. I totally agree with that. Yeah. And then Gary, who jumps in with a point that I almost all agree with. He should come on as a sub in the hour mark when the teams are starting to tire out, and you're using his pace for exactly the same reason that Andrew's probably spoke about in the first instance. So I think we will see Matondo at some point midweek. I'm absolutely certain of that, whether that's from the start or halfway through or towards the end of the game. I do not know, but it'll be very interesting to see where his involvement is midweek in Holland. Saf, we learned today that Yanis Hadji has went to La Liga, to Alaves, season-long loan. I don't know if I'm disappointed, a little bit surprised. I thought that if he was going to leave, he would have went on a permanent deal and never to come back. And the message that he's posted on his Instagram tonight would suggest that he doesn't really have a huge intention of coming back, I think, unless I've read it wrong. Are you surprised that we've maybe not managed to find a position for Yanis Hadji this season?
Yeah, I'm actually. I thought, I mean, obviously we've got a big squad. We need to now do some exits after all those buying in the last kind of few months or so. So I am surprised that something permanent's not happened, certainly in Europe, for him. Maybe it's a strategy. Obviously, he's not played much. He's had that kind of season-long injury, horrendous injury as well. He's kind of come back into it mentality. He was playing well prior to that. I mean, all know what he can do as well. So maybe this is a way to kind of win-win. He kickstarts his career, you know, in a decent team across there in Spain. At the same time, if he improves, we might be able to sell him on a better valuation, and perhaps now they've sounded out buyers for him, and the valuations don't match, or it's kind of fire sale just now. So what's the point? Get him out on loan. They pay his wages. We didn't try and exit that player maybe next summer for a better price.
Yeah. Craig, he's got a couple of years left on his contract, I think, even after this year. So it probably does make sense for Yanis Hadji to go out and get a bit of football, some regular 90 minutes, I would imagine. I think from my perspective, I just wondered if there was a chance that you would have seen him then when you go back to the players that play in the positions he does. Cantwell, Lammers, Lawrence. He's not going to get his game. So I think it makes sense for him to go out and maybe get some 90 minutes. And then if he does come back next summer, then that's a separate conversation. Because if he's went and played to the ability that everyone, I think, understands that he has, and the ability that sort of caused us to go and bring him into the football club in the first place, I don't think there's any doubt the discussion is different at that point. But at the moment, I think it's important that Hadji goes and gets football with a bit more regularity.
Yeah, I think 2 points on this, Scott. The first is that Michael Beale, he's a good egg. Michael Beale's like, you just know he's a good man. I think he cares for the player and the boy. He's been very honest with them. He says, you've been a year out. You know, I can't guarantee you a starting position on a player that's been out for a year. So I think he cares about the player, and he's allowed him to make his decision and put his options out front of the table. I think the loan move's a good one. I think it's probably Yanis's choice, right? I think you talked about Brand Hadji before. That carries some weight behind it. I think he can do what he wants, and he is making quite an astute move as far as I'm concerned. And I think it's a bit of a win-win because Yanis puts himself in the shop window in La Liga if he steps up and performs. If he comes back having a successful loan, he has a choice to make. Depends who's in for him at the time, right? But I think Saf rightly outlined that his valuation could only go up rather than a fire sale. So the way he posted his Instagram message, it suggested that he's not expecting to come back and be a Rangers player. Yep. Stranger things have happened, but I certainly do rate Hadji. I think he's a massive talent. It's just a timing thing we can't afford to take gambles on anyone right now. We've got a league to win, and I think all in all, the right thing's been done. Good luck to him. I hope he does extremely well, and hopefully we get a good sell-on fee for him when we cross that bridge.
He may not be the only one, of course, that departs this week, and indeed I don't think he will be, because we're at that stage of the season where it's you don the yellow tie and you listen to what Jim White's got to tell you morning, noon and night up until Friday night time. Glenn Kamara, the Leeds saga seems to be coming to an end, Craig. And we know we're going to make a hefty profit on Glenn Kamara, which is fantastic. Anyone who's been into this Is Ibrox WhatsApp chat, fortunately for many of you, you haven't. But I would say that a lot of people will understand my sort of thoughts on Glenn Kamara when I say I don't want to say good riddance, because that's really harsh, but I am glad that he's going away now and we are making money from him, because I felt that we've not really seen the best of Glenn Kamara since his pals left a year or so ago, and that sounds really harsh. I get that, I know that, but I think he's also one now, Craig, that needs to go and play football.
He stole my line, Scott. Stole my line. He went in a huff since Joe Rebo left, and his other pals, Uncle Jermaine, and whoever else was in his wee group, and that's fine. That's fine. I get it. But we've seen this trend of players coming in and kind of having that mentality of thinking they're bigger than the club at one point. Morelos comes to mind. So listen, 50 grand, Glenn Kamara. I mean, if we get 5.5 million or whatever the fee is, that's a fantastic piece of business, and that is the model in a nutshell that we wish to execute as a club. So I was interested in hearing Michael Beale's comments on him. He said, when I came back to the club, I started him. That's how highly I rate Glenn. He's a Finnish international. He's a starter, but just for whatever reason can't get back into the first team. I think he's been tapped elsewhere for quite a while now. I think his mind's elsewhere. So, no harsh feelings. I think we've had terrific memories with Glenn. I don't think any of us will forget his goal in the semi-final to take us into the Europa League, albeit Lundstram got the winner. But we've seen some fantastic pieces of play for him over the years he's been here. I think his time at Rangers has come to an end. Good luck to him. Case closed.
Saf, Malky McClellan jumps in. Hi, Malky. Beale is always going to play his players first. I think what you're seeing just now is Michael Beale effectively clearing the decks of the players that he thinks he has brought in better quality now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as a manager, you've got to be ruthless. There's no point trying to have favourites and holding on to them for whatever reason. He's been given a job by the board, certainly over the summer, to do this exercise of reconstructing a fresh team, essentially, and coming up with a plan. He seems to have been backed well. So he's now got to execute on that. He seems to have done that, certainly on the buying side. Now he needs to sell. For me, it's a shame if Glenn does leave. I suppose it's sentiment, if nothing else. You remember the 55 season and the way he played. He was exceptional and carried that team in some matches, and it was just so good. And it's just a shame that he's not had even a semblance of that kind of form over the last 6-12 months or so. So maybe a fresh start. People move on. He's had a good few years with us. Resurrect his career at Leeds. Well, doing well down south. He's had his time here. We move on. We get a lump of money, and we can reinvest that or use that elsewhere as well. And you're right. Michael should play his players, and I think he should do more of that. He needs to be more ruthless because there's a big squad there, so he needs to be much more ruthless in doing that.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. This will be an interesting week for players moving out, I think. Listen, as far as Yanis Hadji and Glenn Kamara are concerned, we wish them both the very best of luck. Whatever they go to do next, I think we will see Hadji back. For how long, I don't know. But I think we make a good profit on Glenn Kamara, and we thank him for his time. Craig, due to the difficulties in shark-infested waters at the East End over the weekend, there's obviously a good chance that this time next Sunday we could be 2 points clear at the top of the league. And I can't let you both go tonight without getting your thoughts on the first Old Firm game of the season next Sunday. Craig, they're in a bad way. They're in a bad way. They are not pals within the group. Their two main centre halves are injured. I think we can quite confidently look at the game next week as winnable for Rangers at Ibrox.
Yeah, long may that continue. I just, obviously you've asked the question. My focus is solely on Wednesday. I think the result on Wednesday or the outcome on Wednesday can be quite important leading up to an Old Firm match. I know these games tend to take care of themselves anyway, but I think, we can only go back a couple of games to rely on a confident performance. So it's that momentum that we need to keep building. So that's going to be very important. But for the Old Firm game, we couldn't ask for more favourable circumstances going into it. No fans are there. At stadium, injuries, bad form, bad result before playing us. So no excuses from us. Michael Beale's got to win the game. We're at home. We beat them convincingly at home last time, arguably a better, more informed side. So I'm expecting a Rangers win regardless of what happens on Wednesday, but I just think Wednesday, if we can get a result on Wednesday, we'll be flying, and I think we'll murder them at Ibrox if that's the case.
Shark-infested Rogers. I have to say I quite like that one from William Brown.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Thanks, William. Saf, listen, it's very early on in the season. We will still go into that tie next weekend with Celtic above us in the league. But there is no doubt that we can go into the tie. And, for what it's worth, Craig's absolutely spot on. I think if we get a good positive result midweek, next weekend we're absolutely flying going into that Old Firm game. You know what I mean? It'll be every ball will be right in there. I do wonder if you look at that match on its own, almost in isolation, and we all know about how you can't predict how an Old Firm game goes, but we will have 2, 3, 4 players making their Old Firm debuts in there. Saf, I just wonder how these guys will deal with that. It's a huge game, probably some of the biggest that these players have played in their career.
Absolutely. I mean, Butland for one example, amongst a few. I agree with Craig. Let's take care of Wednesday. Wednesday will, and then Sunday will take care of itself. We get through to Champions League on Wednesday, and then I think we will do well on Sunday. But I don't want to, because I've done it in the past, or I'm sure we all have. We've been super confident and it's fallen flat. We've had examples even last year. I take heart from the fact, look what happened, as Craig said, in the last Old Firm game at Ibrox, and the way we played that and we dealt with that. Cartwell was outstanding that day, if I remember correctly. So we turn up on Sunday, we'll do well. We'll bring a bit of momentum finally to the league, hopefully around that, and move forward from there. But for me, Wednesdays is equally as important, if not more important.
Absolutely right. I don't often do an on this day. It's usually Kyle's back, as you know, but I'm going to. On this day in 1988, and this makes me feel really old, so it must do the same for you guys, particularly you, Saf. Rangers beat Celtic 5-1 at Ibrox, and it was the famous goal where Ray Wilkins scored that volley from about 805 yards. Drinkle scores, McCoy scores, Mark Walters scores. Just an incredible afternoon at football, all after going a goal down. So if we were to get anything akin to that next weekend, I would be absolutely delighted. Any win will do, but I think you're both absolutely spot on. First things first, and it has to be dealing with PSV midweek, and I really, really hope we do that, and I hope the guys who were allured up to Govan by Champions League football take their opportunity on Wednesday night. It's a huge night for them, and it's a huge night for our football club. I really hope they take the opportunity. Craig, I've enjoyed having you on, buddy. Thanks for coming on. Always good to see you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, mate. Anytime. Thanks again.
And Saf, good to have you on as well, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure as well. It's always good to get stress relief, albeit the weekend's been a positive one. you know, we've had some negative ones to talk through, but it is positive for once.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have you both on. Listen, this week's a busy week across this Ibrox Towers. Of course, tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. Craig returns for the breakdown. He's joined by John Walker and Kieran Wallace tomorrow night from 9 o'clock. We will do no warm-up on Wednesday for obvious reasons. However, Kyle, I hope, will be able to return on Thursday night to give you his rundown of the PSV match and hopefully look ahead to a Champions League draw. We look forward to it. There's lots going on just now. If you are following us on YouTube, please tell your pals. Put your notifications on, like and subscribe to everything we do. Don't forget, we're available across your social media channels on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. We're on Threads, if it's still a thing, I don't know. And we're also on TikTok. If you want to check us out, please do. All the good stuff that we do is available there and indeed across on our new website, allthews.thisisibrox.co.uk. The Women's Pod is just around the corner. Myself, Claire Gemmell and Lauren Mackenzie will be back very, very soon to talk about an exciting first month for the women so far this year. Joe Potter is going to pull up trees this year. There's no two ways about it in that women's setup, and we look forward to discussing that in a little bit greater depth over the next week or so. Stay tuned for that. For now, join Craig tomorrow. Have a great week. Good luck for Rangers on Wednesday night. Bye for now.